Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another edition of the show, Trek Wednesday, Stardate 2015, 357 at 22:04 Eastern Standard Time. 357, 357th day of 2015. We're coming up to the end of a year, folks. The end of a crazy year for Star Trek Online. And I'm joined here tonight by our panel here, our Chief Logistics Officer, Captain TimberWolf. Please lead us off with a good howl, sir.
That's some impressive lung capacity.
Yeah, man.
That is, I know, right?
Bravo. Bravo.
Christmas has a full moon, and we're very close to a full moon. I feel the sudden urge to howl a lot more, so, yeah.
Thumbs up.
Bravo. Our Chief Intelligence Officer, Captain SarcasmDetector.
My cat likes to lick my elbow.
Well, it's because you can't do it.
If that's a euphemism for something, we're not going to ask.
She also likes to take random bites out of it occasionally.
I see. All right, well, we'll revisit that some other time with your therapist or something. Our Chief of Cheesy Tactics, Captain SOB.
Hello.
Our Chief Emergency Role-Playing Hologram and Captain of Immersion Mechanics, Zeph Films.
Good evening, folks.
Our Chief Ironic Medic, Captain MK.
Ho ho heel boats.
And our Chief Instructor, coming back from yet another hard lesson in pain, TeacherKirby.
Howdy, folks. How's it going?
Okay, so this is the second to last show of 2015, and we're just going to kind of go over a couple states. The biggest thing right now is the state of the server and the state of the client and the state of gameplay. What do you guys think is happening right now?
I want to know what they restarted, because I don't notice much difference. Like, did they restart the right server, or...?
I'm suspecting at least a little bit of it is the influx of holiday players. A capacity issue, if you will.
I could tell you
that's not
this.
an excuse, but it's, that's kind of to be expected. There's going to be a huge spike around the holidays. More people have time to play, etc. I haven't seen any login queues. I don't know if any of you have.
Hashtag lag is real.
The lag is very real.
The lag is real.
That's all I have to say about it right now.
It's real for sure.
I will say this though, since the last patch happened, I had several different client crashes, whether it's transferring maps, whether it's beaming up or beaming down, entering or exiting an STF. I updated to the Crimson drivers to see if there's any sort of stability change, assuming the problem was on my end. No bueno. Oh, by the way, for those people who are still making adjustments, STO and Crimson, my suggestion is quit fighting it, roll it back for the time being, go back to the Catalyst drivers if you're using AMD, and then just roll with it for the time being. If STO is your main game, roll back to Catalyst. Don't beat your head over it.
Very specifically, to remove those drivers, you're going to want to download something called Display Driver Uninstaller. You can Google it, DDU. Run that, then reinstall the older drivers. DDU will remove all trace of the Crimson drivers. So it will help your, to roll back will help your STO performance. If the rollback through the device driver property page does not work, then DDU is what you should use.
Yeah, I actually put a Reddit thread on that almost a year ago, actually. So I'll just link that and we'll put it in the show notes.
I can also confirm that those map crashes aren't localized to AMD Radeon cards. I have an NVIDIA card myself, and I've had map crashes tonight alone like 3 times. So, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I just had a crash to desktop, so I didn't quit STO. It sort of quit me.
It's actually really nostalgic. All the lag that we're having right now. I'm sorry, I'm calling it lag. I shouldn't. We should really call it what it is. It's love. love the game. When people love the game too much, this is what happens. But it is nostalgic of the same time last year when, after Delta Rising, the lag started, and it started to get really bad during last year's winter event.
This just in, hashtag the sarcasm is real too.
Yeah. But yeah, it's getting to be really bad. I mean, at some points we're trying to do certain runs like HSE. We tried to do an HSE yesterday night.
Super sensitive to timing.
Yeah. And it's basically a slideshow. Really bad slideshow.
Yeah. I haven't been able to run an HSE for a little bit.
That and the rubber banding, the misfires. Yeah, it's exactly like it was last year.
Over these last few patches,
I think it was worse last year, but it's still pretty bad this year.
Yeah, it's these last few patches. It seems like they're just dumping water on a grease fire, basically.
So the question is, with the shard restart, do you guys notice anything that is better? Because I don't.
Not specifically, no. I don't know but the notes themselves are really sparse. I don't know which performance issues it was intended to address, etc. So we don't really have a specific area in which to look to focus on any kind of improvement.
I don't even think they released notes, did they?
They were really sparse. It was just restarting.
2 lines.
I forget exactly what they were, but they were very sparse.
Could have been some
Now,
different
has
type
anybody-
of performance issue.
Yeah, something about the performance issues, but again, it was non-specific as to what those issues were considered to be.
Have you
Now,
tried?
since the focus has been on the Winter Wonderland here, would it be where that they more or less focus resources to that event to
It's
try
the
and
most
ease the
popular
pain
event
there?
right now. That makes sense. I mean, they had to emergency fix the beam out issue. I'll just call it that.
It seems like
Their space.
sorry, it seems like they noticed that there were some lag issues, and somebody walked over and said, "Have you tried turning it off and turning it on again?"
To be fair, that actually works a lot.
I think maybe the shard restart was they got a shipment of Velcro in and went in and turned off a couple of things. Cable managed, Velcroed it nicely, and I can dream.
Whatever helps you sleep at night, Alan.
I can dream, right?
Oh, all right. For those
Wow.
who missed the reference, we'll put that link back in again with that photo of Zeronius Rex.
I'm just gonna text
Cable job.
Alan. I'm just gonna text you pictures from cable porn for the next week or so. Hopefully it'll help.
I'm just gonna go into work and look at my own cabling job in my data center, and then come home and sleep easy.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's move on. Move on from this
If we
because
can,
this is too
if
much.
we can.
I don't know,
Yeah,
man. It just seems like this lag issue. All I can think of is some of those old cartoons, with that little Dutch kid going up to the dam or the dike, whatever it's called, and it's starting to leak. So he puts his finger in one hole to plug the leak, and another hole shows up, and it just keeps multiplying, and you just eventually run out of fingers to put in.
In actual real life, it probably is some sort of weird interdependency issue like that. That's why it's nebulous enough that it hasn't been solved yet. It's probably a lot of different factors. So you're not as, that analogy is not a poor one at all.
I know earlier on in the year I described this year as the year of lag and nerfs. So we're going to have to change that. It's going to be the years of lag and nerf.
You think 2016 is going to have a bunch of them coming down?
This is cryptic. They're not going to stop.
I'm looking for a
nerfing
year
stuff.
of hell style retcon on this. It will never have happened, and we'll all be happy.
Don't worry, the lag is temporary.
Oh.
Oh,
All right.
boy.
Speaking of temporary, can we define what temporary is, please? Teacher, please.
Hold on.
Please.
Let me pull up the dictionary definition here. According to dictionary.com, temporary means, okay, wait, scroll up. Lasting, existing, serving, or effective for a time only, not permanent.
Really? So not permanent. Okay. All right. Now, help me out here, gentlemen and lady. Could we figure out what has been removed or changed that is said to have not be permanent, but somehow we have been given a timetable, or the timetables that have been given say that it would be permanent?
That's
Timetable?
easy. That's,
Cam's little furry ears are burning.
I know, right?
yeah, this one's fairly easy. Let's start off with the first one. The crits from the plasma consoles. It's time to bring these back. They took these away, and the reason for taking them away, they were working as intended with fall. The reason they took them away was the proc rates between fall and the other weapon types, and plus they couldn't get the crits working on the other weapon powers. So now they fixed the crit rate, or they fixed the proc rate, so it procs equally with fall and scatter volley and rapid fire and whatever other power you have. And they've stated that they can actually fix the crits. So it is time to bring these back. Just think about it.
You know, I agree with that. We need these consoles to be doing more. They are very weak consoles right now.
They're not that weak. It's just I guess my concern is that, and this sounds kind of selfish, but I mean, I guess everyone would have this individual view. I bought the consoles with a specific function in mind. I upgraded them with a specific function in mind. Threw a lot of resources into it, and I think a lot of people that run them kind of feel some aspect of that way. That, you know, hey, I paid for them to work a certain way, and they don't. And it's not the first time it's happened, and it's not the first time we've been compelled to swallow kind of a bitter pill. But this one's especially bitter. It'd be nice to have it back.
Yeah, especially
What
after
would make
the
that any more bitter, though? Honestly, what would make that any more bitter than the changes to Chemosite and Torp spread? Not just a console, but a power itself. Just bringing that up there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've actually spent that much on Torps and Chemo as some of us have spent on the plasma consoles themselves. Like Mikey said, that's been quite an investment, and they have stated that it was working as intended. This was how it was supposed to be working.
Yeah.
We're removing the functionality to create parity, and I use quotes for that. Now they've fixed the parity issues. It is time to bring them back to the state where they're working as intended.
Consider that the investment was usually multiple. You know, you're dealing with 3-4 consoles, and I know people that purchase these consoles across several tunes.
Several tunes and several different types. So I do have, for example, I have my
exactly.
Low caps and
particle gens and grav gens, you know, depending on the build that you have. So it is quite a bit of investment into these consoles.
Yep, it's a bit considerable. And like I said, I don't approach this with entitlement. I'm asking, you know, please bring this stuff back.
Bring it back to the state where it's working as intended. Now, Odin, you mentioned Chemosite and Torp spreads and torpedoes. That is another thing. They said that they were fixing or bringing them to a state where they're supposed to be working as intended and not creating excessive lag. Well, they pretty much foobarred the way Chemosite works with torpedo. According to some testing that's been done, I'm sure you've done some of this testing, that the Chemosite hardly ever procs with torpedoes now?
I was going to save that for next week, but yeah, the long story short is no crits with high yield. And let's put it this way, energy weapon users are getting more of a benefit from Chemosite than torpedo users. And don't even ask about mines, not even in the picture.
just to wrap your head around this. So with energy weapons, chemosite is supposed to proc at like 5% chance per shot or something like that. Whereas with torpedoes, it's supposed to be 100% chance to proc chemosite. It's probably less than 1% procking with torpedoes.
I wouldn't go that far low, but yeah, I sense your sarcasm in that. It is noticeable, very, very noticeable. I understand that the message was to be able to change it so that the client won't have to deal with a lot of those instantaneous calculations, and then the network won't have to deal with sending all that data out at once to all of these clients involved that were in the area for those calculations. But at the same time, you're changing the shift in the calculations and spreading it out, but changing it so that where chemosite is not giving you a lot of these instantaneous procs with torpedoes, but now you're having more calculations happening over a longer period of time with energy weapons, increased firing rate, and procs with chemosite and the embassy consoles. But back to the original point here. With them saying it's only temporary, they have the tools to do it. They made the announcement for it. They made that back, what, about a month ago, 2 months ago?
About 2 months ago.
Correctly? 2 months ago, okay. They have the winter event. We will wait for January, February to roll around, revisit it again. We're going to keep that on the front burner, though. And we'll be watching and waiting, because this is what was said. And I understand the whole we're holding you to it because these were your words, and your words should mean something. Yeah, we get it. We understand. You know, you don't want to say, well, we have to change it for the betterment of the game, blah, blah, blah. We've heard that. We understand that. Granted, yes. But for something with the plasma and embassy consoles, them being allowed to crit, if you can fix that, should be fixed. Now, we could worry about the damage yield later on. That's a whole nother subject. But if you have the mechanism to allow them to crit, and that was the original intent, and you said, yes, this is the way it should work, then yes, let's revisit this and go back into making it work.
And if there is an obstacle, in the process to make those crit again, be transparent about it. I think that you'll get understanding from the community. And every time that Cryptic has actually been transparent about something, I think that the community response was pretty good. Keep on doing that. And even if stuff doesn't come around with a timetable that we would like, some communication is better than none.
Well, the communication that actually happened between late May through late August, maybe even early September, was one of the most stellar moments in STO dev to player communication that we've ever seen. Especially in the way Salami intervened on the whole, we're going to change the way we're going to use the currencies for all these events. And then all of that blew up suddenly. Yeah, it was not mincing words, it was shafting the players. But Salami came in, here's a compromise for it. This is what we want to do as far as a game company for this game in the long term. But for all the people who have invested their time and energy and resources in order to be able to do this, we're going to give you a consolation prize, and you will be able to continue on with what you were expecting anyway. But moving forward, here's what's going to happen. And that's how it should be.
It was setting expectations, and that's a really good way of making sure that players don't get disappointed, by setting expectations and living up to them. It's something that happens in the business world and everywhere.
At least the proper business world. We'll caveat with that.
Yeah, caveat, fair enough. But
Yes.
But it would be nice to see that kind of attitude. We saw it before, and the response from the player base I thought was good. There was always going to be cynics. There's always going to be people that talk hate. There's always going to be people with an axe to grind or something to complain about. But it seemed to me that the response was pretty good. It wasn't, it wasn't all good news, but reasonable people, and I believe that, at least a lot of the players, I think a lot of the players I interact with are pretty reasonable. I don't know if you guys agree.
I would say the vast majority of the player base are very reasonable, and some of the vocal people who may have a personal axe to grind with one aspect or another will be reasonable overall if you communicate with them.
That's true. And I mean, people get upset, emotions, run high. I'm guilty of that myself. And that's a factor to consider too, that it's humans pulling all these switches on both sides.
Enough of the reasonable talk. I want to move on to the next point, which is it's been over a year. Where are the elite board queues?
Amen, brother. Amen.
No, seriously.
Do we need the definition of the word soon?
We might need the definition of the word soon.
When will then be now?
Because
soon.
What was the reason they kept giving for not giving us these queues? That they had to analyze the metrics of
it was a rebalance, I understood it. They wanted to rebalance them for the power creep, but power creep it's like waiting to buy computer parts. It's never going to be the right time. May as well just buy them.
No. To be specific, they've been waiting until they can balance the advanced and normal queues. So there's been how many different balance pass to the advanced and normal queues so far in the past year since Delta Rising has been released? And really, when was the last pass done? It's been a few months since they've last changed the advanced queues when they removed the fail objectives. So
I have to go back to the episodes and see, but it has been quite a few months.
So
still not a huge fan of the changes to Bug Hunt Elite, but I don't think that anyone is.
So how much of a sample size do they need? Is this one of those temporary things where we're gonna see the elite queues sometime in 2017 with expansion 12? Maybe, I don't know.
If they need data collection, I'm sure that great swaths of the community will volunteer to provide that data. I mean, most people miss this stuff. I think most avid players miss this stuff. They miss what you're going to be talking about next as well.
And it's not the 1%ers that are saying this too. I mean, I'm in a very casual fleet. I love my fleet. They struggle to try and do anything that quasi resembles DPS for partial part. But there are a lot of them that are starting to learn, and they're getting it, and they're doing well with it. And they want to be able to go up and rise to the challenge. When they've done their normal and advanced, they're like, oh, this is easy. Let's move on to something else. And they're hitting a brick wall with the current elite with Hive, pretty much.
Right, because even these learning, these quote-unquote newbie DPS players, although a lot of them I don't consider noobs because they like to educate themselves. They're very intelligent, a lot of these guys. But these guys are clocking like 50, 60K. An advance is not a challenge anymore.
When they're going from 5 and 6K to 50, 60, and even 70K in the span of 3 weeks.
Yep, I've been playing 3 weeks, and I've got a 60K fade or something like that. I see that all the time.
3 weeks. I mean, my fleet leader, it was like, hey, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And it was like, all right, here's a guy that Sarcasm wrote. Here's what Timber did with his videos. Here's what Zeph did with his stuff on his... Oh, by the way, I have a message to say. Your Manticore, 2 thumbs up. Good job. They love it. They're a big fan of it. They got people who are watching the Powder Review show. They check in on Valiant stream. They see what the admins on the DPS channels are telling people, as far as what may or may not work best for their type of builds. You have all these people working together, and they sit there like, oh, the information is here. Let me go grab it and pull it together. And in 3 weeks, they made this huge monumental jump. Now they're like, okay, Hive Elite, this looks hard. CPE,
and
this looks hard. But they will get past that in a month or two, maybe even less. And then what's next? What's next?
Yep, you got stuff like the Holy Trinity coming back to some aspect in STO. It was never really a popular thing before, but there's a huge tank community now.
And a healing community as well that's building up.
We're getting there. There's But I mean,
Yeah,
support
exactly.
support in general, and I guess I should really open that up. It's not just heal builds. It really
Right.
should be rolled into support, and the crowd control is absolutely a great thing. I love to see it.
Oh yes,
Stuff
I
like that.
love
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure you'll be able to
Yeah.
get into that. But that kind of thing, I've been rocking that really hard ever since I started playing way back in the day. That hasn't changed for me. And these communities are just going to keep getting larger, and they're going to get better informed. The power creep will be perceived to be more because more people are competent, etc. We need these challenges.
And it needs to be a well-designed one, not just necessarily
Not
here's
an
a bunch
HP
of
sponge.
HP
Yeah.
sponges and we'll throw them at you. You're done.
I've said that in the past. I still think it's a bad idea because it doesn't really encourage tactic building other than focus fire on the thing that's shooting us the hardest.
Now here, I want to say something. The competent community, and I'll use that. I'll use quotes for competent. So the hardcore, the min-maxers, the high DPSers, the agronauts, the healers, whatever. You have that community has expanded. We're no longer talking about 1% of the community any longer, or 1% of the player base. It is much larger than that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it no longer is what it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
I got healed in a pug yesterday. That is the first time that has happened.
So yeah, nowadays I pretty much exclusively run pugs. Every once in a while I might do a pre-made team, but some of the stuff I'm seeing in the pugs, yes, it's possible to get unlucky and come in with a team that's all less than 10k, but most of the time I'm seeing people who are doing 30, 40, 50, even 60k. Sometimes I'll run into another 90k player in a pug ISA. So these people are there. They're in the game. They're pugging.
And these are specifically guys with no fleets, very small community interaction. Like, they just get into the game, they read a few things, and bam, they're at like 60. It happens.
And the problem is that advanced is no longer enough for these players. It isn't. It just isn't. And some of these specialists, like the agronauts and the healers, really, it's fun to have these different roles and play styles in the game, but for normal and advanced content, they aren't needed. They
Not really.
They aren't.
And even
Not really.
the
No.
majority of elite queues even really don't require that much.
Because Corfez is a fun one, but it's all right for us. It's easy. It's easy. Even with the buggy Benthans, that's kind of a challenge because of the bugs. And I say kinda. It's annoying but challenging at the same time. But when you do it, it's like, oh, we're done. We did this. We survived the bugs. Not the design of the system. We survived the bugs.
Yeah.
That is unfulfilling from a game player, where you're not trying to match wits against something that was designed to be an obstacle to be overcome. It was an unintended circumstance that could be either completely shut down your entire gameplay, or you might find a way to work around it and get past it. That's not fulfilling. As a gamer, that's not fulfilling. And as a developer, that shouldn't be fulfilling for the person who designed that map. That entire instance is fun.
Saying it's not fulfilling is also like kind of a lower common denomination kind of thing. It can go a lot further than that. It can turn someone off to the game.
Yes, but that's where you see a lot of people who are like, okay, is this it? And they go play something else.
Let's look at it at a different angle here. They make money by selling shinies, right? But what's the point of selling these shinies, or for the players, what's the point of buying these shinies if you can't actually use them to their potential, to their full potential? In other games, the power creep is built in. This is just the fact of MMORPGs. You go forward, you get better gear, you go on and you do the harder content with that better gear. And then you get even better gear and you move on to the even more difficult content. Well, here we're missing something. We're missing the more difficult content. And this was a problem before Delta Rising. Remember, they never updated the content since they were released. So we got to
The
a
old
point.
elites were as hard as the current advanced are.
No, the old
Roughly.
elites are pretty much on par with the current normals.
Nah, I wouldn't go that far.
No,
low.
no,
I wouldn't
yes,
go that far.
yes.
I
I'd
wouldn't
say
go that far low.
It's
if anything,
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
I'd split
It
the
is.
difference between normal and advanced.
No,
but
it's a little
down
bit over, just a little bit over, but I think about 15% more HP than the current normals. 10
if
to
that's
15.
true, then that should be the most salient point about all of this. That the creep has proceeded so far that our old elites are the new normal.
Pretty
Wow.
much. But then again, they've nerfed the advanced to the point where they're practically on par with the normals again. So
Yeah, the number one, to me, and I'll say it, the number one stupidest thing they could have done was take away the optionals. I mean, there's a reason why it's advanced. That's why the optionals are in place. You fail the optionals that have become mandatory for the difference between normal and advanced, you fail the run. It's the learning curve. You learn the optional in normal, and then it becomes a mandatory in advanced, so you have an extra mechanic to go for. Then there's even more mechanics that are mandatory in elite. It's the learning curve. You take that away, and what's the point of running advanced if it's the exact same mechanics and it's just an HP buffer or sponge, and that's the only difference. That's why I get irritated about it.
I don't know about you, man, but 5-minute hives and 30-second CCAs, you can only do so many of them and say, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
just to be like really specific, the old elites, the old elite ISA, or sorry, the old elite ISE had a hit point total of between 12 million and 14 million, closer to like 12 million. The current ISN has a hit point total of between 10 and 12 million HP. So it is, for all intents and purposes, effectively the same. Just wrap your head around that.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. I don't think that point has ever been made to me before.
That is pretty brutal. Wow.
Well, help me out with this, Kirby. When did you actually come into the game?
I've been in the game for quite a while. I didn't start chasing DPS until pretty much right before last October.
Okay.
At that point, I was doing about 5K.
All right, so you came into Delta Rising and saying, okay, you're going to step up your game, and you started out around the 5K mark, correct?
Right.
Okay, that was the entry level for advanced back in the day. And we're talking like season 2, 3, 4.
I was pushing DPS to some extent before DR, and I was pretty much around the 8K range. Right now, my heal boat is scratching 40. That's creep.
Hell, there are heal boats that can do 50k heals per second, so there's heal boats that can do just as much as some people can do DPS. Yep. We need to have a use for not just the DPS, but also the healing that's in the game, the tanking that's in the game.
Yeah, control or support. That's why design an obstacle course map. I understand the foundry's there for something else, but I mean, as a general queue, design something like an obstacle course map where you have a whole bunch of things going on at once, and you can pick, depending on your composition, what roles you're going to function, and you have an overall points. Like an escort mission where you're supposed to escort these freighters over to a safe side. You could have your support/healers controlling the enemies and keeping them away while repairing the hull or the shields or both of whatever they're escorting.
Just
you have your engineering attack cover the bases and take care of whatever they need to take care of at that point.
One request and only one request. No Gekly.
What?
No Gekly.
Yeah, those are annoying.
Fine. Stupid space slugs.
Fine. Done.
But
Done.
Yeah, where are the elite queues? And for a matter, let's take a look at some of the other elite queues which are still rewarding like 15 marks. I mean,
VCE
and Volt Ensnared, and Yeah, some of the stuff needs to be
I like
looked
VCE,
at.
but it's only there for the slugfest. The mark award is, I mean, no, that's not working as designed. It's broken.
It's good for Argonite, but that's about it. It's getting a well coordinated.
I mean, it's part of the Argonite run. You don't go there for marks, and you have your. And this is the other problem too. You have reward system that's not rewarding properly based off of the rank you're completing it at. You have one advance that rewards more marks than most of your elites. That doesn't make sense.
To be fair, that specific advanced queue or that specific queue does require quite a bit of coordination, and does require teamwork and communication. For example, if someone is on a certain lane and gets a specific type of ship that's pretty much impossible to solo, the other teammates have to rush in and help, and there's other things that need specific type of captain careers to close or whatever it is. So yeah, that particular queue is much more complex than any of the other queues in the game. So I'm fine with it over rewarding. I don't think it's over rewarding at all. I think this queue, the rewards given by this queue, marks wise, is what some of the other queues should be rewarding.
Based on effort, etc.
Right, and I understand that. That's part of my example there. But the other part would be that, that map is actually a well-designed, challenging map, and it's not so much challenging that things are just very difficult, but challenging that there are multiple things you have to keep track of, and you do have to coordinate, like what Sarcasm said. Coordinate well with your team to be able to go and shut down these things, or you're going to have to use brute force to overwhelm it, and your brute force is going to take some time. Valuable time that you could be using elsewhere because the map is very busy. So, unless you're in an onslaught team, you're going to have your hands full. You need to coordinate in order to try and minimize the load for everybody. One other thing, though, we should probably bring back, too, no-win. We need a no-win.
Hashtag no-win scenario.
That's exactly what I was about to say, that one of the best maps or one of the best events as far as requiring coordination was NWS, because if you didn't coordinate, you wouldn't make it past Wave 1.
Well, to be fair,
Wave 5.
Wave 5.
You wouldn't make it. You wouldn't make it to the end if you did not coordinate. Those transports would die.
Yeah, and back to the topic of temporary. Do we have to explain what temporary is again? Because it was said that no-win scenario is being removed temporarily. The breach is being removed temporarily. Mine trap is being removed temporarily.
Terradome.
Yeah,
Terradome. No-win scenario.
And the only bugs I ever ran into Terradome was the engineering console activation bug. It wasn't that bad.
You know what? Instead of us talking about what temporary means, maybe someone from Cryptic should come out and just explain what they consider temporary to mean, because it could mean something else altogether for them.
Well, we've actually sent off a formal request a couple times already to try and get a couple interviews out with specific people. And we've sent out the questions in advance, and we're still awaiting a response. So the invitation is wide open. You don't need to feel intimidated by our panel. We will ask questions, obviously in a polite manner. We will follow up with logical questions if necessary for them. But if there's something that needs to be a trade secret, we understand that. We will back away from it. We'll move on to the next question. But we do like to have, pertinent and competent information up front so we can present it to everybody. We learn, they learn. We have an easier time of explaining things to people who have questions, and everybody else in the gaming community that wants to learn more about this game and how they can be better at it so they can enjoy the content more, will have that information thanks to what you provide to us. And whatever we ask, we try and make it relevant to not just for ourselves personally, but for the rest of the community as well.
In short, we promise we won't bite, but we might nibble if you ask us to.
DPS After Dark.
Put the ruler down.
Yes.
Put the ruler down. Right.
I make no promises. I may or may not be grumpy. Actually, I will be grumpy.
I'll put my diplomatic hat on and we'll take care of business.
Well,
I
keep
always have
spirits
paperwork on file just in case everybody knows that I do bite. I don't nibble, I do bite.
We'll
Make sure your shots are up to date and have your insurance. And Zeph, please.
I was going to say, we'll give Sarcasm Detector some catnip to keep him happy if you come by.
Give him a couple tribbles too while we're at it.
And some lasers. Keep him mentally
cat
entertained.
lasers. Oh
Yes.
my gosh, the fall memes. Oh, the thread on thank you Cryptic for being fire at will. Kind of exploded after that whole. Kyrock, by the way, good lyrics. Yes, we made a couple modifications to them for airing, but good lyrics. And we had our man take care of the. Is he working on a second version of that, by the way, teacher?
I have a second version of that. I can get that to a Dropbox while we're.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll save it. We'll save it for next week. We'll save it for next week. He's on vacation.
Okay.
Let the man relax. So we'll save it for next week. All right. Going on to one other point here, while we're asking for things to be brought back or revisited. What happened with the Valiant consoles? I mean, the two-piece still does not make sense. Let's get it fixed. Can we get an ETA on that, please? Please. You said yes to revisiting. Okay, we get that. People wanted to have you work on and focus on the winter event. When you get back from vacation, could you please give us a relative timeline as far as what you're going to do with that two-piece? Because the console set bonus does not make sense for that ship. I have put that thing on my T5U. I put it on the T6. And the difference is butt kiss out of combat. Zip, zero, zilch, nada, nil, nothing. Nothing. So why should I slot a cloak console that does nothing for me other than just that cloak? Tell me why. I mean, for the KDF side, it'll make some sense. It's not as strong as it could be, but it makes some sense. For the Romulans, yeah, their Romulans are overpowered. Who cares? What gives with this thing? And are you going to join it with the three-piece for the quad cannons to actually give a nice synergetic look and feel with it for those people who want to have their immersion taken to the next level? Zeph, back me up on this, man, because I know you're a fan of the Defiant.
I do like me some Defiant, and I am liking this new Valiant. I'm probably liking it because I got it for free, so yeah.
Just be careful against really big Jem'Hadar battleships would be my recommendation.
I want Battle Cloak.
Would it be too hard to actually have a battle cloak on? You know what? Just call it Attack Pattern Cisco or the Way to Cisco or something. Who cares? Just put it on there. Move on. All right, I'm done. Somebody take me on to the next subject, please, because, yeah, I'm done.
NAR's videos lives matter.
NAR's lives matter too.
But that's the hashtag you guys came up with for the whole, I need a subject title for this. The reason, and this is an inside joke here, but NAR has actually gone into the podcast/videoscape, I don't know, arena within YouTube, and he's going to have his own little talk show / subject matter on STO and whatever else he feels like talking about on his stream. And he posts them all to YouTube, so we'll put a link in the channel, in the show notes. Wow, I cannot talk today. Put a link in on the show notes for his channel, and go out, check it out. You like it? Give it a thumbs up to support. And on that topic, you know, the rest of the videos and whatnot, could you please, Chief Emergency Role-Playing Hologram, give us some good immersion examples that the public can go look at and see and enjoy?
Good. I don't know if I have anything that's that will enrich the immersion in people's lives, but we got a few videos that came out. Last week we actually talked about TimberWolf's interview that he had with Ceronius Rex. If you haven't seen that video was released shortly after the show. We will have the link so you can go and listen to it if you missed it. It's a good interview. TimberWolf, good work. To add to people's immersion, Mr. Odin put up a video of his 34-second run in CCA. I watched it and I laughed. STO Admiral Aaron, you guys remember him. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, was it? Foundry guy?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. He updated one of his trailers for one of his Foundry missions called Adrift. I saw the old one and compared it with the new one. The new trailer looks really good. I can tell that he's limited by the little Foundry glitch where you can't do demo record because none of the costumes that you create will show up, but really well done trailer, and he's working on his new Foundry mission that's slotted to come out. The Social Zone is slotted to come out early 2016, and his mission is slotted to come out mid-2016. Another video, My Balkan Gaming. This is another STO YouTube guy. He's been around the block for a couple of years now. Odin is a fan of him. Odin, you were saying that this guy brought you back into Star Trek Online?
Yes, yeah. Actually, this was a little bit over a year ago. Saw one of his videos when I was going through YouTube and just, browsing a couple of different gaming things. I was actually looking up something for Terra. And then I browsed over to STO and like, oh, I remember this game. I played it, back in the late beta and then in the open game here. And then I came across the My Balkan Gaming's YouTube channel. And he had a couple of things on there like, this is interesting. I probably should go check this thing out. So for anybody out there over Cryptic HQ, if you want to blame anybody for bringing me into STO and causing me the pain in your side, it's him. But don't touch him. You should reward him because he's also bringing other people into the game too as well. So, just saying.
Hersey, My Balkan Gaming, is actually one of my favorite YouTubers in STO. I think he's pretty much the only ship reviewer whose channel I do watch out of the whole bunch.
That's saying a lot from you, who is a ship reviewer yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is really high praise.
Looking at his channel history, he's been doing ship reviews for a while now. Yeah, it goes back to over a year ago. I think his first ship review was the Patrol Escort refit. But anyway, I had a squirrel moment there. Let's get back on task. The reason why I'm talking about My Balkan Gaming is he's doing a giveaway. He is celebrating 2 years of being on his YouTube channel and celebrating hitting 2,000 subscribers. So he has a video that we will have a link for that you can go directly to. And all you have to do is subscribe, comment on his video, and he'll be drawing names. And the grand prize is a Baltum Heavy Raider. So if you don't have one and you want a shot at winning one, go check out that video and comment. Leave your @ handle for STO on there. And check out his other videos. He's got a lot of good stuff on there. I think there's one more video. Again, TimberWolf released a video on the topic of ship reviews of the Lobster Brain ship. That video was up. When did you put that up? A couple of days ago, Timber?
Yeah, I released it at the same time Loot Critter released his, so me and him both kind of got together and collaborated on that. So there's 2 separate reviews on the Resreth on his blog. So you can check out either one of them if you go to lootcritter.com. I was more for the build and what it could do. I think he was more about the aesthetics and going over more of its stats. So Both of them are great reads, and we've got 2 videos up on mine for what it's able to do, which includes the pilot review show video where we did a 3-man ISA with nothing more than 3 Resreths. It was a very good run. Definitely worth checking out.
Nice. And I think that is all for videos to talk about that have come up in the past week. I don't have anything. I'm taking a little break myself for the rest of the year. I might do a review of the past year of my videos, but that's just downloading my videos.
No Valiant video, Alan? I'm
Actually,
I might do. No, I'm going to do the Valiant video after the new year.
You gotta take it easy, man. It's the holidays. After the New Year is plenty of time. It's not like everyone's got a Valiant now, and it's not like, if I remember correctly, a lot of the drawings and things like that are actually taking place around the New Year.
Yeah.
So that would be a better time to pop it out anyway, you know?
That's
in the meantime, take a break.
And I lied. There is one more video that came out this week, but this is part of TeacherKirby's corner, which
Yeah,
we're
it
going
is.
into. So, teacher, teach us something.
Well, actually, before the Teacher's Corner, there was one that I wasn't planning on putting out, but I did end up putting out because it kind of came from the glitch with Winter Wonderland. There was a lovely thing where KDF tunes could get on Winter Wonderland, and so there is a video of the Gorn invasion of Earth's space dock that I put out. Odin suggested I record it when I actually got my Gorn on there. And my Gorn's wearing a pink dress, does the fan dance. It's really funny. I go around and shoot up a bunch of people in the club and do a great evil laugh that I hear people loved. And yeah, it's like half hour of just shenanigans on Earth Space Dock with the Gorns.
How the hell did I miss this video? I'm usually on top
I
of this.
don't know. I tweeted it and everything.
What?
That's the second time he missed the video,
Yeah.
too. You know.
I find this lack of immersion disturbing.
Oh my god.
Check your isolinear chips.
I think we need to bring the.
Check
think
my
we need to
ISO
bring the
chips
engineer
before I
back.
wreck myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe we need to have the engineer take a look at Alan.
Chief engineer calls out to you.
Yeah, his photonic matrix is probably loosening up a little bit. Requires some
He
tightening.
seems to be singing opera relatively regularly now.
I'll file the paperwork.
That's why my voice is all raspy, all the opera singing.
Well, teacher,
Oh, there you go.
teacher,
Yes.
bring us over to the teacher's corner, please.
Teacher's
Practice
Corner,
this.
okay. So,
Teach us. Do teach us.
I know. So Mikey and I were actually talking about this one when I told him what it was. He was over the moon. He loved it.
I was
This
excited.
week we're talking about, I know. We're talking about the isometric charge console. So this is a great little console, but for niche builds, for psi builds specifically, because it doesn't really start to shine until you get into the high part gen range, like over 200 into the 300 range on your part gen skills.
It's also
But,
a console
yeah,
device.
it's
It'll
the-
take a console slot of some type, which is not exactly
Yes,
something you necessarily want to burden a tack build with, but
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't put this on a TAC build because, number one, TAC build's not going to have high enough part gens usually. But number two, it does take up those console slots that are needed on the TAC build to really boost the damage as far as you can go. With the Psi build, you're going more towards the exotic damage, so you can slip this in because it is such a high exotic damage thing. It does have a 2-minute cooldown.
slip
But
this
if you
in.
pair it with yes, but if you pair it with a gravity well, you gravwell everything up, and then you shoot off the isometric charge, it bounces to 4 targets, with the damage being done increasing with every bounce. And I mean, when I looked at my build that had just over 200. It started at doing 12,000 electrical damage and ended doing 42,000 electrical damage on the final target, and that is an AoE area of effect on the final bounce, by the way. So huge damage there with that, and it's really good to pair with, how you have the 2 sphere spawns in ISA that come out, you can do the isometric charge on the first one and then save your refracting tetryon cascade for the second one, for example. So it gives you a little flexibility in these, area of effect attacks that you can do as a Psi Captain, as a support build, and it really does have some teeth. It's really easy to get for feds.
To describe how it can bounce as well. It doesn't necessarily take as many targets as you think.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily take as many targets as you think. You were talking about this, or we were talking about this. It doesn't have to be unique targets. You can have 2 targets, and it can, under the right circumstances, bounce from the first target to the second target, back to the first target, back to the second target. So it can really, you can have. It is. It's pretty good for the science builds. I wouldn't recommend it for attack build. I wouldn't recommend it for something that doesn't have, at least 200 part gens to really make use of it. But yeah, you can get it from the exchange if you're fed for less than 800K EC. So it's pretty cheap. For the KDF, you go to the C store, and it's the Vorkang, I believe, class cruiser. It's 1500 Zen, so it's not too expensive. And obviously for KDF, that's then an account-wide unlock. But yeah, so the video's in the show notes. Check it out.
I just want to point out here that 2 things mainly. First of all, you have to be careful who you're shooting at. If you shoot it at a target that's scrambled, it can bounce back to you or one of your teammates.
I think that's even in the tooltip, though. I mean, it's even explicitly spelled out in the tooltip that can happen. So yeah, be careful, but read the tin.
And the second thing I want to say is I have to disagree with you, Kirby, saying that this is primarily for science build and not for tax. I strongly disagree with you. This console actually used to be part of the DPS meta a while back. Pretty much every single high-end DPSer used to run this console.
I think you're talking about now, though. I mean, you're absolutely right. I remember that as well. But nowadays, it has more of a niche use than it used to. It's not in every DPS build or in hardly any.
It went out of favor because basically there were other stuff that were better suited for using your limited console slots. But it is still a pretty decent console to use.
On the cheap, absolutely.
Very cheap.
And, it is.
And let's be fair here. There are a lot of tactical builds, high DPS builds that are really focused on particle gens, exotic damage as well. Which is
some and attack captains that have a bunch of crit can definitely benefit from that as well, because ISO crits are huge.
Yeah, pretty much, because a lot of my tac builds actually have quite a lot of particle gens and exotic damage on there, and other people do use that as well. So don't just limit yourself to science builds or non-tac builds. This can be used by tacs, engineers, anything.
Definitely.
Yep.
I think just illustrating
Definitely.
the niche that it can potentially take, or maybe the best way to take it and build with it. Maybe I think would be a high part gens build, because then we talked about this, Kirby, but throw a grav well and then throw ISO, for example.
Yep, exactly, and it's fun to do that. You definitely see some warp core explosions from that.
Now you did say,
and it does crit pretty good,
gens, right? Over 200 part gens. It does well.
Yeah. Oh, it does really well. Yeah, I mean, it also benefits, and this may not be well known. It does benefit from the plasma explosion consoles. So it can trigger plasma explosions, and it does crit. So it can benefit if you're running particle manipulator. It can benefit from that as well.
Anyone that's got a side build should be.
Yeah.
Done and done.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that. One thing we wanted to discuss before we get off and end the show here, we're actually going to go from the Star Trek to the Star Talk, so to speak. and actually go over into our little science corner, or the prelude to what we're going to spin off eventually to our little science portion here. We're going to bring you the real stars in this case here. Sarcasm, could you tell us a little bit of what we have following us around on nice little planet Earth?
Indeed, I can very much do so. What I'm going to be talking about today is something called a Trojan, which is a astronomical object. How many people here know what a Trojan is?
Yeah, I do.
I do.
And I'm talking about objects in space.
Or a celestial object, I don't. So
Objects in spaces?
Okay. A Trojan is either a minor planet or moon that shares the orbit of a planet or larger moon. Now, to be specific, they only follow at very specific points or precede at very specific points, either at the L4 or L5. So the L4 is 60 degrees ahead of an orbit, and L5 is 60 degrees behind an orbit. Most of the time, these are asteroids, and the biggest pile of Trojans we know of in the solar system that we can observe are the Trojans around Jupiter that precede and follow Jupiter, and they're actually called the Greeks and the Trojans. So if you can take a look at your screen right now, I know you guys on the panel can't see it at the moment, but for those of you watching the stream right now, it is the little green dots. You can see Jupiter at the bottom left hand corner. So at the L4, which is ahead, you can see all these little green dots, and those are actually orbiting around the L4 point and preceding Jupiter in its orbit. And you have the Trojans at the L5, which is 60 degrees behind it, and those are also orbiting around the L5 and following Jupiter around. Now there's a lot more dots in here. The white dots represent the traditional asteroid belt that we all know about that exists between Jupiter and Mars. You have the little orangey dots there that form a kind of triangle between L3, L4, and L5. Those are called the Hildaeus, and those actually orbit in a triangular fashion. And I actually have a GIF here. If you're watching the stream, you can view how the orbit is. Now, this one doesn't have the traditional asteroid belt in there, but you can see as Jupiter orbits, you have
whatever your screen sharing is completely black.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of black hole comments.
I want to put it in the notes, etc.
I can fix that. Give me a second.
Yeah, we'll also drop it in the notes. While he's fixing that, for those who don't know, the L he's referring to is called Lagrangian points. And there are 5 of them that would happen with when you ever have two bodies that orbit each other. And you have two massive gravitational forces there. What these points are locations where the gravitational pull between those two bodies are, or more bodies, but for example, the two are equal to the point where anything that falls into that point will feel an equal force between both of those bodies. So it kind of gets into that, oh, you both want to share me equally? I'm going to stay here and be happy that you're both equally pulling on me in the exact same force. I love this.
Anyone that's calculated jump points in BattleTech knows this stuff.
Oh, yes, BattleTech on it. There's a lot of Independence War did this too with Lagrangian points. It's nice, but you could sit in a Lagrangian point. It's not something
that actually comes up in Star Trek ever, though.
The shock
hardly ever.
But they're supposed to be communication satellites supposed to sit in Lagrangian points, subspace relays, if I'm not mistaken. Exactly. But anyway, it's a nice place we could park a satellite and just have it follow along in your orbit, and you know that it's going to be there when you look 6-7 years from now. You know, you're good. What we also have, Earth has these Lagrangian points, and Earth also has a couple Trojans as well. And the most infamous of all the famous ones is I'm going to butcher this old Irish name, so please forgive me out there. It's Cruithne. I can't pronounce it properly, but please forgive me. But it has a quasi-orbit. It's actually orbiting around the sun, but it has this quasi-orbit with the Earth as well, and kind of a weird horseshoe-ish like shape, so that it every once in a while, once a year, it kind of looks like it's passing right in front of the Earth in like a quarter orbit, and then just veers off into its own original orbit around the sun.
Okay, people on the stream, can you actually see it right now?
We're getting reports
yes,
that they can.
Valiant and Nature Guy says they see it.
All right, so this is what I'm talking about here. The green dots are the Trojans, and the purple ones are the Hildae, and you can see here they're both preceding and following Jupiter around the solar around their orbit. Now, Earth does have, as Odin mentioned, a very specific Trojan. The one you mentioned, actually, I don't think is considered a Trojan because it doesn't orbit around a Lagrangian point. It has this really weird U-shaped orbit. There is one, they only know of one Earth Trojan, and it's called 2010 TK7. And this is a article I found about when it was first discovered back in 2011, so a few years ago. And it does have a very strange orbit. You can see here it is kind of elliptical shape. If I put this up here, this is what its orbit would look like from Earth. So you have Earth almost in the center there, and the blue dots would be Earth's orbit. Now the green lines, that green spiral, is the orbit of 2010 TK7. And it basically is orbiting around the L4 point in a tear-shaped spiral, and it kind of moves forward towards the L3 and back again towards Earth as it precedes Earth in its orbit. Of course, all these links that I showed here are going to be in the show notes when the show gets released.
And a final note on this, the upcoming James Webb Space Telescope will actually sit in Earth's L2, Earth's Lagrangian point, number 2, and it will actually orbit the sun along with Earth. So we'll have a telescope sitting there, taking advantage of this nice little station keeping that naturally happens in space. Think of it like a gentle grav well there, just holding whatever you want it to hold in that position. And it's going to maintain that position relative to everything else.
It really is it's a pair of gravity wells, or more than two gravity wells holding something in place. You're absolutely correct when you say that.
I wouldn't say it's a gravity well specifically, because nothing can actually sit at the Lagrangian point. You can orbit the Lagrangian point, but you can't actually be on it itself.
No, actually, that is the point of the Lagrangian point. You have that location where you're being pulled equally by these two masses, or whatever other masses are in play there.
Yep.
It's that you're getting an equal
between two or more gravity wells.
Yes, yeah. It's not necessarily a gravity well per se as far as them, but space-time is curved to the point where that spot is actually a well that is equally being treated as a mass that things can sit in there. A depression. Think of it like a small depression where space-time is being pulled from those masses to where it's a nice little pocket that things can fall into and sit there. So long as it doesn't have enough energy to get out of that pocket, it'll stay there.
Oh, and Valiant, I tested this out before we started the show, and the screens were working. For some reason, OBS decided that, hey, I'm taking a break.
Yeah, OBS is goofy sometimes, for sure.
Well, let's be honest here. It wouldn't be the show without at least one technical difficulty.
And I thought we were going to make it all the way through tonight. I guess
Yeah,
not.
well, you know what I gotta say to your sciencey stuff? My dog's breath smells like dog food.
At least your
Next week,
dog isn't
class.
trying to eat your elbow.
Next week class, teacher will teach us all about special relativity. And then I'll go right over into warp field mechanics, which is a real thing.
That's a real
mind you,
thing.
inspired by Star Trek.
There, you know what? Now that I come to think about it, there was one other thing that happened today that actually had to do with Mr. Valiant. Now that I know that he's in the stream, and seeing him there commenting and
You're in trouble.
and goading Cam about his OBS skills. For those of you that don't know Mr. Valiant, he does stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturdays. I think it's a different game, and Sunday, if I remember correctly. There's going to be. I can't remember all the details because I heard the announcement while I was at work. But his stream is now going to be having the backing of Perfect World Entertainment, which means more interaction for new players and all that stuff. So congrats to Mr. Valiant on that achievement with Perfect World, and I hope that works out really good for him and for others in the future.
Yeah, congratulations, Mazel Tov.
That's nice.
Yes, congratulations, Valiant.
It is a bigger deal than I'm making it sound like. I really can't remember all the exact details he said. I know he said something that he was getting logos from Nevedon, and Nevedon is one of the community managers from the German or the Euro forums. I can't remember which one it is. European side of Perfect World. So, but yeah, congrats, dude.
He's the European trendy.
Yes.
Shout out to Neverdon, by the way, who actually was watching a couple of the different videos out there that people have been putting out. And we'll try and see if we can get a very nice special video for our European audience out there, as well as everybody else here. I might actually, I will actually make my first attempt at trying to produce a video. So, go easy on me. It's my first time.
What?
Yes, I know. Shock and awe, right?
Oh no, here comes Odin Knight Films. Uh-oh.
No.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
No.
Odin.
It's just like one of those, I'm putting my pinky toe into the water and backing off after it's done.
Just remember, Odin, to remove the lens cap before you start shooting videos.
True.
Dude, don't give him all the pro tips right away. Let him discover.
Oh, I thought if I put pinholes in them,
was that your problem earlier, Cam? Did you just leave the lens cap on, or?
No, it was just OBS being stupid.
Well, you see, I was going for
So we were told.
Odin,
I was going for pinholes for lens flare effects, because JJ and all that crap. Anyway.
Can you give us a little hint to what it's going to be?
Agronauts will be featured.
Ooh. Are you going to do like demo record and all that stuff?
No, it's already been, it was a pre-recorded run, and I'm going to try and do something a little bit special for this in celebration of the Agronauts that were there, as well as the Agronauts as a whole.
Oh, so I'm just gonna say this because for anybody who's watching or listening tomorrow who downloads this later on, Valiant said cryptic and perfect world logos from California, special stuff for people that sign up to STO via his link, and full publicity backing, plus free Zen ships to promote and giveaways. It's a huge game changer. So there we go.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. And Zerg was in on that run, and Borticus will. I don't think he'll cry, but we'll leave some sort of. We'll leave a little bit of surprise here for people.
Is there any tears left after Borticus saw the 34-second CCA run?
All I gotta say is be glad he didn't.
I don't know.
Teacher's right. But all I have to say is that Ernest, and there was one other gentleman from Reddit Fleets that was there, and we were all in our torp boats, and we knocked it down to 29 seconds, and we were all sad I didn't record it. But UK Captain did get most of it, on his stream. So if I can get a link from him, I think he sent me the link, so I'll get it from him, and I'll put it in the show notes as well. But yeah, he caught a bit of that, and it was like, blink, it's over. What happened? Where's the entity? Anyway, we're done with the show, wrapping it up right now. Thank you, everybody, for coming out here. Thank you for our Chief Logistics Officer, our Chief Intelligence Officer, our Chief Ironic Medic, our Chief Emergency Role-Playing Hologram that likes to make sure that everybody enjoys their immersion, and our Chief Instructor, TeacherKirby. Stay beautiful, everybody. The Chief of Easy Tactics had to pass out because, you know what, he had too much eggnog with Romulan ale. Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you out there.
See you guys.
Good night.
Happy holidays.